Guest line, as promised, the right-hand man, the chief corner of really the biggest name in mixed martial arts. He's also the author of the new book, Win or Learn, MMA, Conor McGregor, and Me, A Trainer's Journey. John Kavanagh is with us. John, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for the time today. How are you?
Hey, John, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's our absolute pleasure, man. And we'll get into the autobiography certainly coming up later. I'm not all the way through, but you did a great job with it. So 12 days out, man, from this massive rematch between Conor and Nate Diaz. I believe you're back in Dublin now, though. Is that right?
Yeah, I just flew home yesterday. I had to come home for a bit of business back here. I have a show on next Saturday. And also, I'm part of the SB Straight Blast Gym network, and we have the European training camp on this weekend. Both of those things were booked at the beginning of the year. So I told Conor I had to come home to take care of these. So he was cool with that. And I'm here for a week.
Well, most of our listeners know that you also contribute to the website, the42.ie, and really your pre-fight columns have just been outstanding. I mean, you just don't get insight like this from cornermen like yourself. I just want to read something on there from you. There's no comparing this training camp to any we have done previously. I can't stress enough how different this has been. As many of you will probably already know, routine hasn't been something you would have associated with Conor's preparations in the past. Now, we all know you guys to be exceedingly hard workers. So what has been the biggest change when you keep talking about this buzzword routine?
Let's compare. Let's say the Mendes training camp, which was similar time. We did 10 weeks together out in Vegas, and a similar time of the year. A typical day for that training camp was get up whenever we woke, which was sometimes quite late in the day, and then we were going to the gym quite late at night, and there were solid training sessions, good training sessions, but they were too long, to be honest, looking back now. And there was just no real, like I said, if I was to use one word to describe this whole camp, I would say routine. There was just no real set pattern to it. It was just day by day. Okay, what do you feel like doing today? And I mean, look at the results we got. We did okay with it, but this one, for the last 17 weeks, I could give you the dates we did boxing sparring, the dates we rolled, the dates we did certain cardio routines, and not only the dates, but the times and the length of times doing each exercise and each routine. So it's the level of discipline and the level of routine that we've had for this one has been, I've really enjoyed it. It kind of sits with me better, and Conor has absolutely embraced it, and I think people are going to see the results of that come August 20th.
And John, I imagine this is going to be something that you guys do moving forward as well, right? This isn't just for this camp.
That's what I've been saying to Conor. I think we're going to see the fruits of this. I mean, it's more difficult to do it this way, that's for sure. Split training, getting up early in the morning, afternoon session, eating, resting, and then going back in for an evening session. We've had a split routine now for the last 17 weeks, whereas before it was one session a day. Now it's two, and also I think, the more I think about this, you sort of have different types of personalities, and some personalities are designed for more, if you want to say, army style routines, and others are more creative and artistic. And I think Conor is more veering towards the artistic, creative type of personality. Maybe I'm a little bit more the boring, routine type personality. But I think if you merge them two together, I've been thinking in my head, it's kind of like if you could get a Randy Couture personality and put it in a BJ Penn type ability, you come up with something that's pretty unique and special, and that's what I see happening now.
Absolutely makes sense. Now, what is the biggest difference skill-wise in Conor? I know, obviously, you guys adopting a new methodology, but skill-wise, where has Conor improved for this fight against Nate?
Let me see on that. I think that I wasn't that disappointed. Not disappointed is the wrong word. I wasn't that concerned about the skill level in the first fight. Maybe strategy-wise and energy-wise wasn't great, but the way he could slip the shots and counter with his own, the sweep in round one that nobody seems to have seen, the ability to work the clinch and get off the fence. If you watch round one, there was some nice skills displayed in all ranges. There has been certainly when I'm doing these interviews, I'm trying to balance between giving good answers and still we're holding our cards a little bit closer to our chest and what particular skills we've honed in on. in the lead up to this, I think most people are smart enough to kind of see the areas that were working well for us,
Yeah.
and we've obviously improved on them. And then obviously when there was clearly some fatigue and some shots that were a bit overthrown, we've tried to improve on them. But skill wise, I was always, like I said, I was a big fan of BJ Penn. Still am a big fan of BJ Penn, incredible fighter, and I always thought Conor was incredibly skillful in all ranges. But then, if you watch one of my favorite fights, Randy Couture and versus Vitor Belfort won back in the day, and you look at somebody just with a kind of simple game plan but an incredible engine, was able to beat somebody who was unbeatable back then. If you remember the early Vitor Belfort fights, and like I said, we've tried to merge those two fighting personalities, if you want to call it that, together. And I believe after 17 weeks of split training, that's where we're getting close to having now.
Now, John, I heard this from someone that was not a part of your camp, and I guess I have you now. We can either confirm it as true or false. But was it true that heading into that fight against Nate Diaz that Conor may have been dealing with a staph infection? Is that accurate?
He was, but I wouldn't accredit that to having any effect on the loss. Of course, you yourself know this. I don't know of a fighter that goes into a fight that, the last 3 months have been perfect. There's a girlfriend issue, there's a family issue, there's a work issue, there's a training issue. There's always going to be issues. So we try not to talk about that after a contest, because your opponent didn't have a perfect training camp either. I will say this now: the last 17 weeks have been pretty much about as perfect as you could get. Everything just seems to have clicked together for this matchup. Everything just seems to be in a really, really good place. So I'm more excited than the number one fan right now.
Now, you guys brought in Dylan Dennis, a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and not only is he a high-level guy who's done well in tournaments, but he has a style that is very submission-oriented. He's extremely aggressive. How has he helped you guys?
Yeah, Dylan All In Dennis, we're calling him. He's brought us down to the blackjack tables a few times, and he's earned that name, All In. No, he's been a fantastic addition to the group. He's been with us for quite a while now. Great personality, just fitted in. And for me personally, as a jiu-jitsu fan, I've gotten so much out of him, and he's an absolute nightmare to roll with. We're describing him as like walking through a minefield. Wherever you put your hand or your arm, he's just hanging out of it in a blink of an eye. A very, very submission orientated game. Gunnar Nelson's a big part of our group as well. He would have more of a position heavy game. Dylan's is just submissions from everywhere. It's really helped us tighten up in our guard top game and those type of positions that Nate is very dangerous with, the triangles and arm bars from. So, from a technical point of view, that's where he's played a huge role. But just in general, he's just been a great addition, like I say, to the training. And I've no doubt he's going to be part of a lot of our camps moving forward.
John Kavanagh with us on the Anakin Florian podcast, the autobiography Win or Learn. The book title has become sort of a calling card. This was released shortly after the Diaz fight. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. I started it with Paul Dollery, who helped me write it in about December, I think it was. So the Aldo fight was just happening around about then, and then we went into initially it was RDA, and then it became Nate Diaz. But I speak about the Nate Diaz fight in the
Oh,
book.
you do? Oh, that's great.
Yeah. It actually finishes on that, which is weirdly, I was oddly happy with that, because it is. I don't like, we have a sort of. I think there's something maybe a little bit in our society that's completely against the idea of losing. Like, we have a really sort of unhealthy obsession with winning all the time, and that's what I talk about in the book. That there is this eventuality of is that a word, eventuality?
Yes,
about having to deal with failure or losses on your way to achieving whatever goals you might have. There's obviously the very real side of that in fighting, and it's very, especially in mixed martial arts, or in any single combat sport, it's very very, very visual. Like, you only compete 2 or 3 times a year, and then there's a massive build-up, unlike playing, say, football or tennis or something, you're doing it every weekend, or if you're in a team sport, you can kind of get lost in the team. But for mixed martial arts or for boxing or any of these type of sports where you're only doing a couple of times a year, there's a huge emphasis put on it. And I talk about that in the book. But whether if you're trying to be successful in your business or whatever you're doing in life, you are going to have these setbacks, and it's for me, it's what you do with them rather than avoiding them, because you won't avoid them. You will have these setbacks, and it's been nothing that's made me more proud of Conor. There's a lot of things that make me proud of Conor, but nothing has made me more proud of him about how he dealt with that in the immediate after. I knew, and it's how I knew he'd react immediately after the fight in his interviews, and then more importantly, how he's reacted at in the last 17 weeks and what he's put himself through in these last 17 weeks, so as to make sure that he did learn from the process. And now the time for learning is over. Now the time for winning is here.
Yeah, seemingly couldn't have handled things better than he has, dating to the moment that fight ended back in March. Now, I'm glad I read your pre-fight column, but I will admit that a lot of my questions were answered, so kudos to you on that. A couple of your other quotes, you said there won't be much satisfaction in a close decision. I know you really want finality here. And you also said your own reputation as a coach is at stake. So I'm wondering if you could sort of speak to those two things and why you believe those to be true for you.
I'll answer the second first. So, in terms of coaching, like this is an ideal situation. A coach couldn't ask for a better platform to show what himself and his athlete is capable of as an immediate rematch. To go in there and get a round and a half or almost 2 rounds with somebody, and then to be given basically almost 20 weeks to prepare for that rematch. That we have to be able to show the improvements we can make in a period of time like that. Otherwise, that's what's the point of it? So I think that this was an ideal situation, and definitely a part of that has come about from Conor's hard work he's done in the UFC for the last couple of years, that he was able to use his influence a little bit in order to secure that immediate rematch.
Right.
So I do think it's important that we show that we do learn from losses, and we're not going to go out and execute the same mistakes that were happened in the first fight. I have an enormous amount of respect for Nate and Nick. The two of them, they're a fighter's fighter. They not so crazy about setting themselves up for, kind of working the system in order to get good fights and in order to secure certain deals and stuff like that. They speak their mind. They've done some kind of crazy things in the past that have probably hurt themselves more than anybody else. But they do have an incredible warrior spirit, and you can't but be impressed by them. In saying that, I do believe that Conor has quite a noticeable technical advantage and technical superiority to Nate, and we have to show that in this rematch. It's great that Conor did well and did so well in round 1, but it means absolutely nothing if the other guy's hand is raised at the end of it, and we have to correct that this time. This has to be without any kind of shadow on it, without anybody kind of questioning it. Right. This has to be a very one-sided victory for Conor to show that we do have the skill difference, but we also have the fight difference, and we have the strategy difference. And that's what we want to go out and show in this rematch.
All right, final question from me, John. We were so excited when that McGregor-Dos Anjos fight looked like it'd be coming together. Conor getting a chance to win a belt in the second division, and just seeing Conor at 55, I think myself included with a lot of fans were most excited to see Conor as a UFC lightweight, to see him experience those challenges and fight for the UFC lightweight championship. We see him there long term. Sounds like you might be in that camp as well. I mean, how conceivable is it that he fights at 55, before the year is out?
When I get asked these questions, I already see the bjpen.com articles that are going to come out after it. So I'll word it very carefully, and I'll give you my opinion on it. Now, I'll preface it by saying that this may not be what Conor wants to do, because at the end of the day, Conor is far smarter than me when it comes to navigating his way through the process and what he's done so far. Look where he's got himself. I would consider myself pretty decent at fight analysis and getting ready for a certain contest. I know I'm giving you a long-winded setup for this, but like I said, I know what articles are going to come out by the end of it. But in my personal opinion, I would like to see Conor at 55. That's just me as as his longtime trainer and in somewhat way like his big brother, I would be encouraging him to stick with 55. But that's just my small opinion. What Conor wants to do, Conor will do, and whatever he says to me that he wants to do, I will support him. And with the likes of George Lockhart on board, he made 45 against Aldo, very, very comfortably last December, and his current walk around weight is around about the same as his walk around weight, making 45 anyway. So it's not like he's gained a huge amount now and it's impossible to go back down. He could do it, but you, John, asking me, John, for my personal opinion, I would encourage 55.
All right, there you have it. The founder of the Straight Blast Gym in Ireland, SBG, now a brand that is known around the world. That's got to be pretty special for you as well. We also encourage you to get the autobiography, Win or Learn, at Amazon.com and many other outlets as well. John Kavanagh, man, really appreciate the time today. Safe travels back to Las Vegas. And for me and Kenny and everybody here, all the best to you, Conor, and the rest of the team next weekend.
Thank you so much.